Evolution Exposed is a book by Roger Patterson that claims to be a survival guide for today's students. Roger Patterson? I'm not quite sure who he is, but he's affiliated with censorship at the very least, a bad omen of things to come. A Google search yielded nothing of any real relevance, only some Bigfoot sightings, which I hope weren't him. This is a list of the 4 biology textbooks he uses. You can read this yourself, because this is going to take quite a while. Oh, and this is your warning to turn off bullshit meters and related objects. Once exposed to creationism like this, they tend to explode. I've lost many a meter this way. It's not pretty. I've never seen so much blood. Roger Patterson says, the purpose of this book is to provide students and teachers in biology classrooms with biblical and scientific insight into the true nature of evolution as it is taught in public schools. Answers in Genesis has long suggested that students are being indoctrinated with evolutionary ideas in the public schools. This reference book provides evidence to support that claim. The very first paragraph in the book alludes to an evolutionist conspiracy. This doesn't bode well. Roger Patterson says, after reviewing 4 of the most commonly used high school biology textbooks, we found an astounding number of references to evolution. Virtually every chapter in these books contains implied or even explicit references to evolutionary ideas. Well, I have a feeling this is one of the few true statements this book is going to make. It's hardly surprising that evolution, being the theory that links modern biology together, is mentioned pretty much everywhere in modern biology textbooks. Now, this book does something novel for creationism. It cites its sources and actually encourages budding creationists to read the articles and question teachers in a respectful manner, rather than spout Bible verses at largely uninterested audiences. I personally applaud such an effort to make creationism worthy of respect, rather than end up with Hoven clones. However, whether or not these sources contain any sort of truth is yet to be shown. After all, one of them is Answers in Genesis. Once again, a bad omen of things to come. Roger Patterson says, no one was there to observe the chemicals forming the first cell or watch as fish slowly develop legs and turn into amphibians over the years. Evolutionists may counter that no one was present to observe the creation of the earth. But God was there, and He has recorded the highlights of those events for us in the Bible. There are 3 major errors in that statement. Number 1's asking, were you there? Well, of course not. But now there were lawyers and law enforcement present at murder scenes or mothers finding a cookie mysteriously missing with her child's mouth covered in crumbs. Evidence is followed to determine anything that would have happened in the past. Number 2, God wrote the Bible, which proves creationism. This should be self-explanatory. This assumes belief in a deity, which is of course open to intense debate. Number 3, evolution involving the first cell forming. And yet it doesn't. While abiogenesis is the complementary field of evolution, it's still biochemistry and not evolutionary biology. Evolution starts after life begins. Roger Patterson says, if the teacher responds by saying scientists don't have the answer yet, you may want to question the validity of any other idea based on those claims. For example, if we don't know about the conditions of the early Earth, how can we be sure about what the cells first formed? Well, I can't think of any theory that is founded upon something we don't really know yet. An absence of evidence does not end scientific inquiry. In fact, it only opens it up. Also, the example used here is atrocious. We do know the conditions of the primordial Earth, and while the abiogenesis hypothesis may not be as powerful as the theory of evolution or gravity, we do have a rough idea of what really transpired. Just because science does not allow supernatural explanations doesn't mean that supernatural explanations are not correct. Starting with different assumptions leads to some different conclusions in almost every case. Ultimately, it takes just as much faith, if not more, to believe that only matter and natural laws explain the universe. In my opinion, the first sentence is actually quite correct, but simply saying God did it is unhelpful and hinders any sort of scientific progress. Science can make no comment on the supernatural because science is a study of the natural world, and the supernatural cannot be tested or falsified. That last sentence also implies a religion of science and is an argument from incredulity. After that little tidbit, it explains that not all scientists are atheists and many believe in a deity, which is of course true. This book's doing much better than expected, eh? It then tells creationists to not be ashamed of their ignorance of science, and encourages skepticism, the healthiness of which is unknown. And no, it doesn't actually say not to be ashamed of your ignorance, I'm just using that word myself. The book also gives shout-out to other books as well. Without reading these, I can't give a proper rebuttal, but with such authors as Duane Gish, Michael Behe, and Ken Ham, and such lovely titles as Evolution, a Theory in Crisis, Evolution, The Fossils Still Say No, and The Lie, Evolution, I'm quite certain that these books are in no way credible.